Hello everyone, Ruby Ravel here, well versed in the dark arts of espionage, and here to deliver to you today a top secret dossier on Mercury square Pluto. This is quite a tense aspect because Mercury in Aries conjunct Jupiter has a very different approach to communication and the exchange of information than Pluto does. Mercury in Aries likes to be loud, direct, theatrical, and energetic and forceful in the expression of all its beliefs and opinions. It wants its conversations and dialogues with other people to be like a visceral fight, a well-choreographed martial arts scene in an action movie. Mercury in Aries believes that if something is worth saying, it is worth expressing with confidence, with bravado, with bluster, to be that Aryan ram charging intellectually into a situation, not sitting down to reflect or to carefully go through the details as a Virgo or a Libra might, but just to trust its raw animal instincts and impulses to say, yes, this is me. This is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I want, and I'm going to tell you. And I don't give a crap whether you like it, because truth is more important than babyish social niceties. Part of this is because Aries, being the god of the spring equinox, sees itself as the ambassador of light and life, of action and vitality after all the stillness, introversion, and necessary quiescence of those long dark nights of winter. It says, I've had enough of sitting around contemplating things and disappearing into my own inner world. I want to be out there. I want to be out there in the world, and I want my thoughts and ideas and opinions to be out there in the world, and to have the strength to know that they can take on other people's, and usually to do it with good humor at the same time. Like Achilles in the Iliad, Mercury in Aries has an essential dislike of everything that is tricksy, cunning, complex, shadowy, and not quite what it seems on the surface. You know, it believes in having an honest fight, not in all kind of chicanery and skullduggery. You know, that's just not honest. That's not the proper manly way of doing things, you know. If I want to sleep with you, I will tell you. If I want to punch you, I will tell you. If I don't like the dress you're wearing, I will tell you. You know, it's all just about knowing that you know where you stand with me, because I'm always going to tell it to you straight. However, one of the troublesome aspects of Mercury in Aries, besides its rough tongue, is that it can sometimes mistake impulsivity for honesty. It can take that first initial reflective response to something and say, this must be the truth, this must be what I really feel, so I'm just going to let it fly raging off my tongue without thinking about the consequences that these words might have once they are out in the open. But Pluto does completely the opposite. He does not live in the world of short-term gains and short-term victories that Mercury in Aries finds so empowering and necessary. He lives in a much longer and slower world. He has seen the deeper, darker depths of humanity. He abides in the underworld, and he knows that life is much more complex than the bright bravado that we see playing out on its surface, that below all of these characters, all of these actors, all of these archetypes that we run around performing on the world stage, there are all these hidden screenwriters, there are all these nefarious influences working their way up through that subliminal soil and playing themselves out in ways that we don't understand. Mercury in Aries likes to feel that by taking charge in every situation, And by always speaking its truth, it is somehow in control of the world, somehow in control of life, because it has been assertive, it has taken the initiative, it has made things happen in a world where things could just as easily regress and not happen. But in doing so, he is unaware of all of the unconscious elements that are actually influencing his decisions. Living in that world of raw reactions, he's not always aware of how the deeper obsessions and drives and fears of the reptilian mind are actually pulling the strings of the psyche in all kinds of bizarre ways. So Pluto looks rather guardedly and suspiciously with a leering eye over at Mercury and Aries, loudly proclaiming all his opinions and beliefs and making a bit of a buffoon of himself. And he says, "You have no idea what you're doing, do you? You are an absolute imbecile. You make the young Parsifal look like a bloody genius. What you don't understand is that information is power. The ability to understand people's minds and their own subconscious motivations is power. Sure, you can go charging into situations and picking quarrels and fights to make yourself feel like a big man, but a lot of the time you're just making yourself look like a big brat and a big baby. You're actually ruining and destroying situations that require much more subtlety, psychology, and finesse if you are really going to be triumphant in them. Stop playing these short games. You have to play a longer game. Stop rushing into things. Sit down and quietly assess and analyze all of the subterranean elements that are playing out in a situation and figure out how, through patient waiting, timing, and acceptance of the facts, you can slowly massage and manipulate those underlying issues to work in your favor. This is where you need the cunning of the spy to have this well-concealed, rational facade which people cannot penetrate. No one can really know what you're thinking. So, Mercury and Aries, if you go rushing around blabbing your mouth off to everyone about every last thing that pops spontaneously into your head, everyone has all your details, everyone has all your secrets because you haven't kept them secret. You have put them out there into the world where they can be the plaything of the collective. You know, we live in a reality where words and information can be taken out of context and turned against you so easily. You're just giving everyone all of this information that could be called into question and accountability at any moment. You are living a dangerous life. You might think you are playing the great hero, but you are just setting yourself up for a great big fall. If you don't want other people to control you, but if you want to be in a position where you can be the one in control, then you have to keep things to yourself. You have to know when to conceal and when to reveal. You need to have a grasp of those longer term tactics. So the next time you have some big intention or venture or thing that you need to express, think about the long-term consequences of revealing that information. Think about how massively it could change your life. And think about how timing and context are so important for what we express. Mercury in Aries often doesn't have a strong sense of context. If it suddenly wants to say something, it will say it to you, whether it's in a ward for the terminally ill or on a crowded train. It will just voice it, because if it doesn't voice it there and then it won't feel empowered and it will feel like it will have forgotten it later. It lives in the moment. It doesn't think beyond the moment. But if you live in the moment, you are always at the mercy of the moment. And that's where Pluto wants us to play that longer term game, to hold our cards close to our chest until we know we have a good enough hand to play. Or maybe even when we've just reached a point where we have to accept that fate has forced our hand, And we still have to find a way of working that to our own private advantage. So there is obviously a lot of friction between these two gods duking it out here. You know, Mercury and Aries just wanting to run into a situation and say, this is what I think and feel, take it as you will, I don't care. And Pluto that's saying, no, be tight-lipped, be careful, be cautious, and we will reveal what we have to say in exactly the right calculated way when the time is right. And that's very uneasy, you know, because all of those fires of Aries that just want to release and flash themselves out into the world, that are sick of being patient in that wintry way, but just want to, you know, live and engage with the friction and battle of life, it's having to hold that back. And all of those fires that want to go out in there end up being pulled within, and it can be very uneasy to sit with your own personal inferno, with your own private conflagration, to just sit there calmly in that plutonic brooding way when your dress has caught fire and those flames are slowly sneaking up your ankles, up to your hips. When your brain itself feels like it has a private inferno that you are desperately trying to make sure no one else can see. But one of the reasons why Mercury in Aries just wants to get everything out there in the open as soon as it arises is because it keeps that flow of life going, with all this fire just seeming to come through it at a torrent at all times. If it's getting that out, then there's no obstructions, there's no inner blockages. It just can keep the momentum and the rhythm of life flowing at all times. But once Pluto tries to put a lid on that and it becomes this boiling pot, then there's a much greater sense of being stifled, of being oppressed in some way, and, you know, desires that we might have expressed, gotten out there and then moved on from in a healthy way, instead turn into obsessions. The very fact that we can't voice them, or at least not yet, gives them a deeper power, gives them a deeper intensity and meaning. You know, if we can just rush out there, say, I want that, and then we get it, fine, nothing to worry about. But if we want something, we're not absolutely sure whether we can get it, and we know we have to be very careful and cunning in order to get it, then there is that life and death intensity added to the situation. The wrong words spoken at the wrong time could result in a part of our life and part of our connection with others being destroyed with the ending of friendships. And certainly this aspect often means that secrets or words about us that people have spoken against us have a way of coming back to us. And likewise, we can also find that things that accidentally tripped off our tongue can come back to haunt us. All those gossipy secrets can do a lot of damage, especially when Aries' significant pride is at stake. Now, as is often the case with squares, sometimes if we're not able to find a balance between those two conflicting energies within ourselves and find a way of giving them meaningful action, we instead project them out into the world. And we identify with one side of the square and we allow someone else to take the role of the other planet that we have decided that we don't like for whatever reason. So if we identify solely with the passionate Mercury and Aries, feeling like we're just being direct and upfront and plain and clear and heroic about our own motives and ideas, we get frustrated when we meet these people who we want to give us that same raw passion and directness back, and instead they're being aloof and mysterious and enigmatic. And this pisses off Mercury and Aries, who says, will you just tell me how you feel, damn it? Enough with all the skullduggery and chicanery, please, just give me a straight answer. Stop with all these mysterious silences and, you know, he's there hammering down at the gates of hell, at the gates of the underworld, saying, open up, I'm being open to you, why aren't you doing the same to me? Let me express my passion, let me express life through the patterns and vacillations of my enfired tongue. Whereas if someone is identifying exclusively with Pluto, with that part that is feeling a bit guarded, a bit wounded, a bit suspicious, which knows it has all these things going on in its inner world that it would rather the rest of the outer world doesn't see, when it sees that buffoonish Mercury in Aries hammering on the door, does not like that. All the security defenses of hell come to the surface, and it just says, either I'm going to freeze you out, or I'm going to cut you out. You might like your little arguments and quarrels, but if you mess with my infernal boundaries, I will see a way that you get absolutely destroyed. And so while Mercury in Aries might be prone to outbursts and saying things that are a bit mean in the moment, Pluto doesn't do this. It will keep all of its thoughts and feelings to itself, but if you push it too hard before it is ready to reveal, then what it gives you will be nothing less than sheer verbal napalm. It will destroy you with words. It will find your weakest wounds, your most delicate points, your Achilles heel. It will take a pair of scissors and it will snap those tendons. No hole barred once Pluto unleashes his wrath. In spite of all the friction of this aspect, it is very good for doing intensive research, for doing psychological analysis, good for taking astrology to a deeper level. You know, Pluto isn't, and coupled with the energies of Mercury, isn't happy just to take things at surface value. It always wants to look at the very deepest roots of a given situation. And while it might not always be able to control those situations, because Pluto often puts us in scenarios where we deeply want something that is beyond our control and therefore feel our desires frustrated, one of the ways Pluto therapeutically deals with this is by to obsessively analyze it, to look at it from all these different angles. And if it's looking at all of the different factors that have made this complex, convoluted situation what it is, it can come to a state of intellectual clarity about it. It can say, my mind can grasp this, and this gives me a sense of control. Even if I can't necessarily do as much as I would like in this situation, I have still deepened my understanding of the human mind. And those are all worthwhile qualities that I might be able to use to my advantage in situations that are not quite so fraught and tense. Anyway, I think that's enough for now. Any of you people out there with Mercury-Pluto aspects, or who are feeling the effects of this transit, or who just want to speak to me in general, please feel free to comment below. I am available for spiritual and astrological counselling. My email address is below, as is my Patreon, if you want to be a lovely supporter of this most delectable of astrological channels. And yes, happy espionage to you.